Welcome, people of the World Wide Web. So it is Cypher Sigma here. It is a Saturday and it is another movie review. So yes, I'm back from holiday. That's why there was no review last week. And obviously I've been to see Final Destination Bloodlines. Now, potentially there will only be one or two movie reviews from the cinema that I'm going to, because the Odeon will open when this review drops in a few days' time. The local cinema that was my Cineworld will now become an Odeon, and it will be open. So hopefully I will have more reviews and there'll be more films I can watch. So yes, as I said, this is the movie review for Final Destination Bloodlines. This is the sixth movie, I believe. The first five previously. I think it's 14 years since the first one. It is an hour and 50 minutes long. And this is kind of a story that spans the beginning of the franchise. So it goes before the first movie and then goes towards the end. The directors have said this is a kind of soft reboot-ish, but linked. So that's Zach Lipovsky and Adam B. Stein. I think they're related and have been working within the Final Destination movies with writers or stuff like this. And I did actually really surprisingly enjoy it. So we'll stick the spoiler warning up. Probably just to forecast, there is nothing after the credits. If you haven't seen it, essentially this is someone who has a premonition. This is before the plane from the first film we have, and then this links, and this lady then grows up to be a grandmother, and then basically death comes for all her kids and her line, and there's a whole story to it. That's the story in a nutshell. So sorry. Then we'll put the spoiler warning up and we shall get into it. So yes, so this movie starts with Beck Basinger as Iris and her boyfriend Paul. Basically, he takes her on a surprise date. They go, you see him in the car, she's blindfolded, you take her to this fancy restaurant. We know what's kind of going to happen. As you see there, then you start to hear the clues in the music and stuff. Like there's a kid that's being a little bit of a brat, picking money out of the fountain and doing stuff. And you kind of start to see these elements as the date goes on. You find out that Iris is pregnant and Paul is going to propose. In between them proposing, this little kid throws a coin, it gets stuck in a fan, and then this kind of, as well as this place that they've been to, this grand opening has been opened months earlier, and they obviously have missed stuff starts to happen, and then basically there is a very massive amount of deaths, as essentially everybody is killed as you see them leading up to Iris then falling to her death with a little young lad. Then you are awakened and then realizing that this is actually a dream from the lady's granddaughter, played by Tess Bryons. So she plays Charlie. No, she doesn't play Charlie. So Caitlin Santa Juan, she plays Stephanie, and then you have T.O. Bryans, who plays her brother, and these are kind of the two main grandkids, and Stephanie is kind of the focus of this. She's in university college, she's flunking out, she ends up going home because she keeps having this dream and it's a nightmare essentially for like a few months. So she goes home and tries to start to talk to her family to find out her grandma and stuff like this. In the process of this, she then manages to track down her grandmother. Her grandmother lives in this big fort and inside, and then she comes to a conversation of essentially death is after him, that this is a premonition. She has this book that has links to the previous movies, even though, as I said, the directors have said this is kind of a soft reboot, but it could be linked. And essentially this book goes, it helps, and you see within this conversation of the two that the granddaughter doesn't believe her grandmother, and her grandmother kind of is losing her mind, but she's talking to death. As the granddaughter leaves and doesn't want anything of it, the grandmother's like, no, you need to keep the book, you need to go. She gets to the door, doesn't want to walk out the door. As she does walk out the door, she runs up to her, gives her the book and said, look, you need to take the book and you'll see. And in between that, a weather vane gets shot through her face. Quite a harsh one. She is dead, and then you have them at the funeral, and then this is where there is Stephanie seems to be the only one that's starting to see that something going on. She's starting to see signs and stuff of stuff that will happen. No one kind of believes, and she isn't really being vocal. Stephanie and Charlie, their mum has been out of the picture because she was driven crazy by her mum, but she turns up for her mum's funeral, and this is where the family have kind of all back together. In between this party, Howard, their uncle, he gets killed, as we see in the garden party in the trailer, by the lawnmower. And then they have another, and this is where then Stephanie comes to a realization that, look, she pulls all these kind of intricate plan out, and she says basically everybody that was at this restaurant where her grandmother was, she saved everybody, and essentially going by age and by the order they died, Death has been killing all these people that survived and all their family off, and basically because Iris was the last one to die, her family are the last, and this is where she's picked the grandmother off, she's picked her brother off, so she's going by age. She goes, because obviously he wouldn't have existed, or yeah, his uncle, sorry, so it's one of their grandmother's kids. And she explains that obviously the people that are married in, they're not affected, but obviously because of Howard's, her uncle's family first, they're 3 kids and the next one to go, and the eldest kid, so you have Eric, Bobby and Julia. Eric is the one we see with the nose piercing and stuff like this, so we kind of know where this is going to go. He goes through to the tattoo parlor, has this whole intro, there's a fire and stuff like that. We believe he's dead, and then the next morning they manage to stumble across him, Stephanie and her brother do. He's alive. She is then getting in this forecast. I can see this will happen, and this may happen, and this may happen, and they're like, you're being silly. As he's going along, his sister comes out, and then she gets killed, Julia, in a very unexplained way. And then this is where her brother's like, oh no, my sister's right. She saw how this was going to happen, but why didn't the elder brother happen? Why didn't it happen to the elder brother? And then you kind of had the realization that his mum turns out said actually he was a love child of someone else. He wasn't part of their bloodline, and that's why he's not going to die potentially. But then there is kind of the what's going on. So when they start to believe that everything's going on, obviously the next one would be Bobby. So then they go searching out from the grandmother's book that basically JB said someone survived. So they try and find it, and this brings them to Tony Todd's character. Obviously, we know he died in real life. This is the last thing I think he kind of acted, and it's really cool. He explains, obviously, we find out he's the little boy that is from the very beginning, so it kind of ties him into how the whole universe, so to speak. He says, essentially, the only way to get out of it is you die and get brought back to life, which happened to the girl in 2, or you kill somebody else and basically take their life. There's a few funny antidotes and stuff like this. But as he said, death doesn't like being fucked with, pardon my language, that's the term that they use. And through the set of this, them trying to kill Bobby and then bring him back, ends up Bobby and Eric get killed. Which then finally leaves Stephanie, her brother, and her mum as the last 3 to survive. They realise that the best place to go is their grandmother's, and that they're going to try and find some way to maybe kill one, or her mother says that I'll go, I'll stay where grandmother was, and you 2 will ever be safe. They go back to it, but obviously death gets in the way. There's a map that when they get to the grandmother's house, there's all chaos and stuff like this. The mum is killed, and then the daughter drowns, being stuck in the camper van, and the brother brings her back to life. And then it kind of, it's all happy, all done. Then we have kind of the end scene of where you have the Stephanie and her brother. Her brother's going to prom. As she's walking him to prom date, the dad of the prom date basically comes over and said, oh yeah, this guy, he's great, we love him. He goes, and she's like, yeah, he saved my life. He goes, well, he didn't really save your life because you didn't really die, because your heart didn't die, you just drowned. Which then you have kind of a couple of events of a massive train derailing and them getting wiped out. Everyone's dead. The end. So what did I think of the movie? I was actually pleasantly surprised. I went in with low expectations, but I actually really enjoyed it. The final over-exaggeration kill was a bit over the top, I think. But apart from that, I enjoyed the clever ones, even though it's a lot of CG heavy, and I knew it was a lot of CG. I actually quite enjoyed the death in the tower and how everything had not enjoyed it, but I thought it was done very well. The music and then few little like funny incidents and stuff, how they played it throughout the movie actually worked really, really well. And how you suspect one thing and one thing else will happen, and how they killed him was very clever as well. And I thought it was really, really good. I would rate this 6.2 out of 10. I think it's very clever. I also, because there is no clear definition of where the franchise will go, I suspect this will make a lot of money and will probably inspire another one. It kind of closes out. Um, but what you find out from the beginning to the end, this penny does play a role. And I think it'd be very interesting if maybe that penny is actually linked to something else, some sort of darker force. And it's kind of because the kid interacted with the penny in the beginning, this is what set it all off. Also, because you have Eric is not a biological child and how he is not linked to these people at this 1960s opening party, I think it'd be very clever if all those people that were at those party were actually linked to all the main people that have had the premonitions from the previous movies. You know, some, and essentially, you know, like some of them could have been adopted, some of them could have been, you know, like IVF and all this stuff, and there could have been mix-ups and stuff where people from that party, their DNA and stuff is linked to these people, and that's why then it happens. And I think that would be very clever and ties the whole world all together and would kind of make perfect sense in my eyes, because I think that's very clever. But yeah, I very much enjoyed um, Final Destination Bloodlines. Have you seen this movie? Let me know your thoughts and feelings in the comments down below. I've been Cypher Screen Time. I'm not sure. See you in the next one.